Alrighty, good morning, good morning. Jonathan here with Boston Collectors, and today's video is all about Ray and BB-8. Before we start diving into this, I do want to thank you all so much for the continued support. This is past Jonathan because this is on Saturday, October 9th. All right, so by the time you see this, this is for the future. All right, but regardless, I do want to thank you all so much for the continued support. We're banging out content like crazy right now because Howard Chan is not letting our wallets go. He's got them in a vice grip. All right, even if you don't use a wallet, if you use something else, whatever you're using. So Ray and BB-8, I have completed the evolution of Ray. I'm done with it. All right. Now, the only reason that I started going into the evolution of Ray anyway is because Mike was, he gave me Ray with the Resistance outfit, which again, you can check out. A nice price. I'm not going to talk about the price, all right? But the price was nice. It was real good. So now I went and I got my last Jedi Ray. I did another review for that. Check that out. And now we have Ray and BB-8. Oh, that's also not to, we don't want to forget, I did a review on the recently waitlisted Ray, which I hope you all picked her up. She came with a lot of great accessories. She is definitely going to be a future Grail. Now, getting back to Ray and BB-8, we don't have that really cool, snazzy, jazzy looking cigar wrap on this particular box, but this figure I believe is also 5 years old. I will definitely be taking that into account during my review for this figure as well. So looking on the box again, we don't have that sequel trilogy photography going on the back, but again, that happened a little bit later. Box is in pristine condition. I got this off of eBay for $240. It was originally up there for $280-ish, I believe, but they were nice enough to come down a bit, and I got this for $240. That's without shipping and tax. So getting into it, this is MMS 337, Ray and BB-8. We also have the photo of both of them together, and we have that really nice engraved Star Wars logo going on there. We got the gunmetal gray. We got the black strip. We know how this go, right? Let's get into that art print. And here we have the Ray and BB-8 art print. I like that we sort of have a bigger version of her, and we have a smaller version, that is also including Ray and BB-8. I like the layers going on here. This is overlapping her, overlapping the staff. Really, really nice photo. This thing is huge as well. So now let's go ahead and let's get her out of this sarcophagus, shall we? Alrighty, so here we have the figure. They boxed her up beautifully. Now, here, let's just dive straight into the piece. This is probably going to be very difficult, but I don't plan on using BB-8 because I don't have enough shelf space for him, but it would be cool to have him. Wow, looking at the figure right away, her joints are really tight. Yeah, really, wow. Yeah, I feel like he really had this only in one pose. That's probably the loosest that it come, but that's still very tight. Check out that portrait. A lot of people absolutely love this portrait. It was probably good for its time, but I personally don't think that it's all that. It looks okay though. I'll give them that. I feel like there's a slight discoloration going on there. Could just be me. Could just be me. But regardless, she looks really cool. I love the clothes. I love the colors. Let's go ahead and let's put her back. Let's try to get through these accessories, man, because we have quite a few of them. So bear with me. Let's do this. Alrighty, first things first, let's go ahead and talk about the base. I mean, it's not really much here, right? You've got this hexagonal style base that we're familiar with from the sequel trilogy characters. The one thing that I do find interesting, though, is how they chose to put the droid before the actual character. So we have BB-8 and Ray, and guess it's not really much else to say there. With that, we also have the sand from Jakku, which this doesn't like magnetize or clip itself to it, but it does hug it very, very well. Now, the reason for this is so that BB-8 can sit in this sand, which there is a magnetized layer there for him to just sort of, chill and hang out. Really cool add to me. With that, we have the crotch cradler for the character. So now let's go ahead and jump into BB-8, right? Since BB-8's the star of the show, BB-8 featuring Ray. Now I am sort of holding it up because it isn't magnetized to the ball right now, but these are actually two separate pieces. So going into the base of the body first, the coloring here is orange in the film, but here for some reason it's sort of like it's like brownish, right? It's got this brown color going on. More so, to point out the really cool paint applications here, you see that like grit and grime and sort of like that grassy, sandy style going on around those circular portions. Really cool. There are removable pieces on this particular figure. So you have this portion, and there is a piece that plug into that, and then at the bottom of it here, got to be careful. These parts are very, very tiny. You have another feature where you can plug something else there. Inside of this is a magnetic ball. Okay, now that is going to allow BB-8, as you can see, it's not sticking here. You got to kind of find it, utilize his head to sort of track it, and then he will connect to it. And as you start to roll the figure, which I think this is pretty interesting, his head will move with it. I love that. Super, super cute. Love this droid. Speaking of BB-8, these are the components that he come with. As you can see there, these are very, very tiny and highly detailed too. Really cool. This is probably one of the cooler ones, this sort of this drill bit here. Very slender, very tiny. Got to be careful with those. And then we also get the antennas here. Very tiny stuff. Next up, we have the instructions. This actually comes with separate instructions for both Ray and BB-8. Very useful for putting on the clothing. We also have pegs and batteries. Batteries, of course, these are for BB-8. The pegs, which you can see here, are for Ray. Here we also have Luke's saber. This is very, very, very standard to what we see throughout the rest of the Ray pieces and throughout just a lot of the pieces for Luke. So it's nothing really to write home about here. Yes, this can detach. Plug it back in. You did not get a lightsaber swooshing effect with this for some reason, even though she did utilize this saber in The Force Awakens. Here we have the blaster that Han Solo gave Rey. Again, something that we've seen throughout the rest of the other pieces. Very standard stuff. And here we have the hands. This is when, she's in her garbs and everything, hunting and scavenging, if you will. You also have these directional style hands as well. And lastly, at least for the gloved ones, you have one fist, and then you also sort of have one gesturing hand, maybe for her to hold her bag or something. Very interesting that we don't get an extra fist and another hand similar to this. Now for the ungloved hands, you sort of have, again, this resting style hand, and then you have this blaster-like hand here. And lastly, you have one fist, and this might be for her staff, I guess. She does happen to have another hand very similar to this on her actual person, and on the body, she also comes with a relaxed hands. A lot of inconsistencies here, but this was 5 years ago. Here we have the goggles, which this is on an elastic style band there. Very well detailed. We also have her shoulder guard as well, which is pretty cool. That's on another elastic style band. It goes around her arm. And moving on to the clothing part, this is actually going to go over her head. So her eyes and, her mouth and everything, if you're trying to pull this down, will go down, and this is actually going to cover her hair. Really nice. We also have two more pieces of clothing here. So this is going to actually go around her body in terms of, well, over her shoulder rather, as you can see there. Then last but not least, this will actually go around her waist. So it's on a clasp style system or button system, if you will. Wrap that around her waist. Push those two buttons back in and you're good to go. We also have her staff. We've seen this across multiple figures of Rey. Very, very similar to all of the other ones that we've seen. I'm pretty sure there might be some slight differences, but for me personally, they're unnoticeable. It's the same thing pretty much. Last but certainly not least, you have this really, really cool bag. So some of these pieces actually do come out. I'm not really sure what they are. Not all of the pieces will, though. You've got sort of like this blade-like style thing here that she's fashioned, and this bottom part does not come out. These small grenade-like canisters can. This can come out, but you run the risk. This is actually like in the groove of whatever this particular piece is. So you run the risk of messing that little strap up. This is the can that she used when she was drinking water in the beginning of The Force Awakens. It can come out, but only so far because it's sort of held down by this chain. Really, really cool piece here. The bag can open up. I really do wish that they put some cushion or something in it to make it appear filled out. These parts can also come out as well. I love, love, love this bag. And here we have the Rey portrait, or Daisy Ridley, if you want to go with that approach too. It works either way, right? I'm going to go ahead with Rey, the Rey portrait. So I want to showcase on the right side of her face, which is why I have the highlight going on there. If the camera's able to pick it up, just the skin texture, so good. For a figure from 5 years ago, I feel like that's phenomenal work. Now, the only thing about this portrait that I don't like is the overall portrait. So the facial features and just, it doesn't look like Daisy Ridley to me. However, that's not that's not me saying I hate the portrait. I'm not a big fan of it, but I will tell you what I am a fan of, and that is the hair. So here I love the attention to detail with sort of the windswept look to a couple pieces there, the strands that are in her hair and the knots that are in her hair as well. If you see back there, from her sort of decorating it. Again, the attention to detail with a bigger strand of hair sort of making its way in the back. They did a fantastic job here. Just look at this. The hair sort of knotting around the hair itself. Glorious, glorious work. They also went ahead and added the strands here, as you can see on the side of the portrait as well, which I think looks great. There is one thing about the hair that I'm not really a big fan of, and it's sort of like this. It looks like they darkened that part or like drew in a hairline, if you will. Whereas now they don't really do that anymore. So it just kind of make it look as if it's not a Hot Toys portrait, in my opinion, but I don't know. Let me know what you all think. Am I crazy? But again, for 5 years ago, I guess it was all right, but I've seen better portraits from 5 years ago, honestly. I want to say maybe Jack Sparrow was 5 years ago. They can do it. I just don't think they were inspired to do it. I don't know. We're definitely going to cover that up with garbs. Let's move on to the next section. So now to the figure overview portion. Now, again, this is a 5-year-old figure, so I can't really dump on what my expectations would be right now picking this up. But with that said, the body it definitely feels outdated, and I'm going to get into that shortly. However, there is one thing that I'm very, very, very surprised by, and that's the neck region here. You've got a lot of bend and twists going on from that neck down into like underneath the clavicle. That, oh my goodness, I was actually shocked. That feels very, very nice. Now, the person who owned this figure previously, I can definitely tell they probably kept her in like maybe one pose because her joints are actually a lot tighter than I thought they would be. So moving on down a bit here, I'm not one to get crazy with the poses, so I didn't try the ab crunches and all of that good stuff. I didn't attempt it because I don't usually do that with my figures. But going into the elbow joints, those felt really nice. I believe that that's a double jointed elbow as well. The wraps here, I've noticed that they don't come loose like the Last Jedi version, which is a huge plus in my book. Moving on down. The wrist pegs feel really good. I absolutely hate this hand. It is so long. I'm not really sure why. But again, this is not the final pose. I just wanted to do the overview without putting all of her extra garbs on. So again, the wrist pegs feel really nice. I don't want to say they have a ratchet. It just feels like a very slight ratchet in my opinion. Could just be me. Now, I do want to get into one part about this figure that I can't stand in terms of the articulation. You've got something going on up here in this hip where it can only turn so much. And that in itself is sort of limiting the range of motion. So maybe if we bring this down a little bit, maybe you want that foot to point a little bit more over here. You actually can't unless you twist the boot. So you're not going to get, if we bring the camera up a little bit more here, you're not going to get that extra twist up here. So twist up there just enough, come back down here and twist the boot. But with that said, yeah, while we're able to control that here, you also have the double bend in the knee, and that might look a little weird if you have the boot kind of doing its own thing down here. And So there are major pluses to this because of it being, again, a 5-year-old figure, but there are also, that in my opinion, it's probably a major con, making it appear as if they're twisting to look around or something of that nature. And this particular piece, it lacks that. Alrighty, so if I had to give this figure a rating, I would definitely give it a 3 out of 5, 5 being the best. I do find it interesting they didn't add a light up feature with this arm, especially considering she did actually ignite the saber in The Force Awakens. Her head wrap is terrible to put on. I felt like I was going to tear the fabric, and when it was finally on, it didn't look good to me. The thigh rotation didn't have enough give for me to pose the figure the way I wanted to, not to mention that whole portion just felt very clunky. The portrait, in my opinion, is amateur at best. The better feature would definitely be the hair sculpt. Lastly, the hands we received are very inconsistent. On the plus side though, the accessories are amazing. The detail in the bag, the extra clothing to swap her look, all of those additions are great. BB-8 looks incredible even with the color not being accurate. I probably won't use him in my display, but maybe I'll have a DTOF shelf where I'll use him one day. I wouldn't personally go after this one unless you're like me, where you feel complete by completing a character's evolution. If it weren't for that, you all would be seeing the Coruscant Guard video instead right now. However, that one will be coming soon. What do you all think about this figure? Easily forgettable? Are you happy to have it? Let us know down in the comments section below. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed today's video, you know the drill. As always, thank you for the support, and we'll catch you on the flippity flop.